बोलिए लाडली लाल की जय। श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। ध्यान मूलम गुरोर्मूर्ति पूजामूलं गुरोर्पदम् मन्त्रमूलं गुरोर्वाक्यम् भक्तिमूलं गुरोर्कृपा। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते। रामं रमेशं भजे। रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमू। रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं। रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे। भो राम मामुद्धर। नमः कमलना भाय। नमः कमलमालिने। नमः कमलपादाय। नमस्ते कमलेक्षण। यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रणोति तस्मै तग्वंह देवमात्म बुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। Eternally seeking souls, let's now do Sankirtan. And Sankirtan means loud chanting of the names, glories, pastimes and attributes of Bhagwan. The words are projected on the screen. Please follow after me and let's sing with love and devotion. सीताराम 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 सीताराम
सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम
सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम
सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम
सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम मेरे राम 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 मेरे थे मेरे हैं मेरे रहेंगे भी राम मेरे थे मेरे हैं मेरे रहेंगे भी राम राम।
मेरे थे, मेरे हैं, मेरे रहेंगे भी राम।
मेरे रहेंगे भी राम।
मेरे रहेंगे भी राम।
मेरे थे, मेरे हैं, 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 मेरे रहेंगे भी राम।
मेरे राम, मेरे राम।
मेरे राम, मेरे राम।
मेरे राम, मेरे राम।
मेरे राम, मेरे राम।
मेरे राजा स्वामी सखा सुत प्रियतम 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 राम।
मेरे 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 स्वामी सखा सुत मेरे प्रियतम राम। मेरे राजा स्वामी सखा सुत
प्रियतम राम।
मेरे राम, मेरे राम।
मेरे राम, मेरे राम।
मेरे राम, मेरे राम।
मेरे राम, मेरे राम।
मेरे स्वामी भी हैं राम। मेरे सखा भी हैं राम।
मेरे स्वामी भी है राम। मेरे सखा भी है राम।
मेरे स्वामी, मेरे स्वामी भी हैं राम। मेरे सखा भी हैं राम।
मेरे स्वामी भी है राम। मेरे सखा भी है राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे सुत भी हैं राम मेरे पिया भी हैं राम
मेरे सूत भी है राम। मेरे पिया भी है राम।
मेरे सुत भी हैं राम मेरे पिया भी हैं राम
मेरे सूत भी है राम। मेरे पिया भी है राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे 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 राम।
मेरे सुत भी हैं राम मेरे पिया भी हैं राम
मेरे सूत भी है राम। मेरे पिया भी है राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम। मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम। मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम। मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम।
मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम। मेरे राम मेरे
राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम
मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम मेरे राम। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। The next kirtan is Nand Yashoda Varo Mero Pranan Pyaro. Nand Yashoda Varo मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो
मेरो प्राणन प्यारो प्राणन प्यारो प्राणन प्यारो नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन
वापे तन मन मारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
वापे तन मन मारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
मोर मुकुट वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
मोर मुकुट वारो
Please clap your hands and sing.
मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो प्राणन प्यारो नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
मोर मुकुट वारो मोर मुकुट वारो मेरो प्राण प्राणन प्यारो
भाल तिलक मारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
मृदु मुस्कनी वारो मृदु मुस्कनी वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
मृदु मुस्कनी वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
ओ नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
दृग अति मत वारो दृग अति मत वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
मत वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नक बेसर वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नक बेसर वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
मनमोहन वारो मनमोहन वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
मनमोहन वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
अंगुरीन गिरिधारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
अंगुरीन गिरिधारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
चिन्मय तन वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
चिन्मय तन वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन वारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन वारो
प्राणन वारो
ओ नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
गीता सुनाने वारो गीता सुनाने वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
गीता सुनाने वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
उपचा घर वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
पूजा घर वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
गति अति मत वारो गति अति मत वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
गति अति मत वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
पीतांबर धारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
पीतांबर धारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
प्राणन प्यारो
नंद यशोदा वारो मेरो 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 प्राणन प्यारो
बोलिए वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। श्रीमद सद्गुरु सरकार की जय। Devotional listeners, now I request your full attention as we continue with the topic of Ram and Ramayan. Today the question before us is, how can we know Ram? For that is the purpose of life. How do we fulfill the ultimate aim of our life? How do we know Ram? So let's go to the ultimate authority of knowledge, which is the Vedas. Rig Ved, Yajur Sam Ved, Atharva Ved. The Vedas, there was only one Ved, and then Bhagwan descended to earth in the form of Vedavyas, and he took one Ved and divided it into four, Rig, Yajur, Sam, and Atharva. The Vedas are the ultimate authority, and there is no blemish in the Vedas. They are absolutely pure, they are absolutely correct, because no one created the Vedas, no one wrote them. They came from the natural breath of God. Nishwasitamasya Vedaha. Or as the Ramayana says, Jaki Sahaj Shwas Shruti Chari. Even God did not write them. They just appeared from the natural breath of God. And they were put into writing 5,000 years ago with the advent of Kali Yuga. About the Vedas, the Bhagavad Puran says, Veda pranihito dharmo hi dharmas tadviparyayah Vedo narayano Vedo narayana sakshat. Vedas are Narayan, Sakshat Narayan. They are God Himself, the embodiment of God. So we ask the Vedas, how can I know Ram? And the Vedas say to us, Yasya matam, tasya matam, matam yasya na vedasaha, avigyatam vijanatam, vigyatam avijanatam. Meaning, if someone thinks they can know God, if someone thinks they can know Ram, then that person is the most foolish, the most ignorant. Whereas the one who understands that Ram cannot be known is the most intelligent, the wisest. So if you think you can know Ram, that would be your ignorance. And if you understand that Ram cannot be known, well, then you are very wise indeed. In other words, the Vedas are telling us that God cannot be known. We cannot know Him. But know Him we must. Otherwise, we will always be wandering in the 8.4 million forms of life, 84 lakh. We will never reach the aim of our life. We will never fulfill it. That's impossible. There has to be a way that we can know Him. But first, let's understand why the Vedas tell us that we cannot know Ram. They tell us that Bhagwan Ram cannot be known because our senses, our eyes, ears, nose, skin, tongue, these are the 5 senses of knowledge, 5 senses of perception. They're called Gyanendriya. With these 5, we can perceive the world. And we have our mind and our intellect, man and buddhi. With all of these, we gain the knowledge of something or someone. But what if our senses, our mind and intellect cannot know Him? They cannot reach there. But why can they not reach there? Why can they not reach God? It is like this. Indriyebhya parahirtha arthebhyascha param manah manasastu para buddhir buddheratma mahan parah mahatah parmavyaktamavyktat purukhah parah purukhan na param kinchit sa kashtha sa paragati. The Vedas say that great are the senses. Our senses are there. They're great, but greater than the senses are the objects of the senses. Greater still is our mind. Greater than the mind is the buddhi, the intellect. Greater than the intellect is the soul, atma. Greater than the soul is maya. Greater than maya is God. And greater than God, there is nothing. So you have God up here. Then you have, in the reverse order, you have God, you have Maya, you have the Atma, then you have the intellect, you have the mind, you have the senses. God is so far beyond our reach, the reach of our senses, mind, and intellect, then how can we know Him? There are many things even of this material world that we are not able to know. We don't understand them. We don't understand even our own body. How is it that our nails, just take the example of our nails, fingernails, toenails, part of the nail is alive, it's conscious, and part of it is insentient, jad, it doesn't feel anything. Because we regularly clip our nails, we cut them using the nail cutter, there's no pain. But if you go a little bit too deep, then that part of the nail it will hurt because you went too far. So part of the nail is sentient, conscious, and the other is not. It has no life. Part of it has life, part of it doesn't. We can't even understand our own body using our senses, mind, and intellect. How can we know God? God is divine. Divyo hi murtaha. He is divya. And we are material beings. We are controlled by Maya. So when the Vedas say that we cannot know God, it makes sense to us. How can we know the divine? When Bhagwan Ram descends to earth, we see him, and the only thing that happens is that we become very confused. देखहि रूप महारण धीरा मनहु वीर रस धरे शरीरा डरे कुटिल नृप प्रभु ही निहारी मनहु भयानक मूरति भारी रहे असुर छल छो निप वेखा तिन प्रभु प्रकट काल सम देखा विदूषण प्रभु विराट मय दिसा बहु मुख कर पद लोचन सीसा हरि भक्तन देखे दो भ्राता इष्ट देव इव सब सुख दाता. When we saw Bhagwan Shri Ram, we saw him in many different ways. There are some who saw him and they became afraid of him. When Bhagwan Shri Ram went to King Janak's palace, when he was there to break the dhanush, the Shiv dhanush, the bow of Lord Shiv, there were many kings and princes, very valiant kings and princes present in the court. And many of them, when they saw Bhagwan Shri Ram, they became afraid of him. If they were wicked, if they were vile, they became afraid of him. They became enamored with him. The devotees became enamored with him. So the ones who had faith in him, they had lots of faith. They saw him as God, but the rest did not. They became very confused. They did not see him as God. One person sees Bhagwan Shri Ram and says, look at this man, he has 10 heads. Another says, you don't know how to count. He has 26 heads. I just counted. Another says, what are you both talking about? Do you not know how to count? He has 56 heads. And everyone is giving a different opinion as to what they are seeing. Everyone is giving a different account. No one is seeing Bhagwan Shri Ram's divinity Everyone is seeing him as they are themselves. जाकी रही भावना जैसी प्रभु मूर्ति देखी तिन तैसी. So we cannot perceive the divine Bhagwan Shri Ram as being divine because of our senses, mind and intellect, being material, under the control of Maya. Furthermore, God is very confusing. There are many things which are extremely confusing about him, such as, and the Vedas tell us this, Anuraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. The Vedas say he is Anu, he is very small. Anu means small. He is smaller than the smallest. Is he smaller than a grain of salt? Yes. He is smaller than an atom, a proton, a neutron. He is smaller than the smallest thing imaginable. And that makes sense because God pervades everything. He is Sarvavyapi. He has to be inside the smallest of the smallest. So he has to be smaller than everything else. After saying Anuraniyan, the Vedas say Mahato Mahiyan. He is bigger than the biggest. He's smaller than the smallest, but also bigger than the biggest. And this also makes sense because at the time of Mahapralaya, cosmic dissolution, infinite universes merge within God. They go into his Mahodar. Mahodar means Maha-Udar. Udar meaning stomach. Maha meaning grand. They go into his infinite stomach. Everything has to merge within him, so he has to be bigger than the biggest. But what we cannot understand is that he is smaller than the smallest, but at the same time bigger than the biggest. And if that was not confusing enough, then the Vedas next say, Neti netya sthula mananuhu. Well, he's neither big nor small. There you go. Here you have it. He's neither big nor small, but he's bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest. The mind fails, the intellect surrenders itself. I cannot know God. I cannot know him. He never takes birth. Ajaya mano. But then, bahudha vijayate. He takes birth countless times. Never takes birth, but takes birth countless times. Shri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam veth parantap. Chapter 4, verse 5. O Arjun, you and I have lived countless times. The only difference is that you don't remember any of your previous births, while I remember all of them. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharat abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sansthapa narthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Again, chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. These slokas sound familiar, don't they? Yada yada hi dharmasya. Beautiful, beautiful verses. Paritranaya sadhunam. Shri Krishna promises that whenever there's a need for him to come to earth, he will descend. He says, I will come to earth whenever there's a need. I come to earth whenever there is a decline in dharma, whenever there is a rise in adharma and decline of dharma, I descend to earth. That is his promise. So, the mutual contradiction about him, yet another one, is that he never takes birth, but he takes birth countless times. Our limited, very small mind, and our, as Shri Maharaj ji, Jagadguru Shri Kripalu ji Maharaj used to say, our puny intellect, tiny, tiny intellect, cannot understand this. How can we know him? We cannot. And then the scriptures say that he has no sense organs. He has no eyes, ears, nose, etc. But then they say that he has countless heads, countless eyes, countless everything. Sahasra Shirekha Purukha Sahasrakshah Sahasrapat Sabhu Migvam Sarvata Spritavat Yatishtad Dashang Gulam Ved. He has countless heads, countless eyes. And even if he has no sense organs, the Ramayana says so beautifully, Binu pag chalai sunai binu kana, kar binu karm karai vidhi nana. Anan rahit sakal ras bhogi, binu bani bhakta bad jogi. Tan binu paras nayan binu dekha, grahai घ्राण बिनु बास असेखा. अस सब भांति अलौकिक करनी, महिमा जासु जाई नहीं बरनी. Ramayana says, without feet he walks. Without ears he hears. Without hands he performs all actions. He has no eyes, yet he sees. He tastes, yet he has no mouth. Though devoid of speech, he is the most expert, most clever speaker. Everything about him, everything, he is divine in every aspect, and nothing about him can be understood. His glory is beyond words, says the Ramayana. And then Purush Sukta says, Brahmano mukhamasid bahura janyah kritah uru tadasya yad vaishyah padbhyagvam shudro ajayat. Brahmins were manifested from God's mouth. So he has a mouth. Kshatriyas, the warriors, from his arms. Vaishyas, from his thighs. And Shudras, from his lotus feet. And I will just add over here that many people in the world believe erroneously that one is higher than the other. One caste is higher, the other is lower, and then the lowest one is this one. The lowest are the Shudras. But Bhagwan himself has said in Purush Sukta that the Shudras, they manifest from his lotus feet. Now I ask you, when we approach God, the deity, when we approach God, then what do we touch? Do we touch his head, his mouth? Do we touch his arms? Or do we touch his lotus feet? We touch his lotus feet. His charan are the most important. So here from this verse we can understand, from this Vedic verse we can understand that Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudra, everyone is equal. We're all children of God. God has people say, well, who came up with the four castes? As Sri Krishna said, I did. But my Lord, you did? He said, yes. Chatur Varnyam Maya Srishtam. I created the four castes. But why? Because people have different talents, they have different natures. So the ones who are more intellectual, they became the Brahmins. The ones who are more physically strong, they are the Kshatriyas, warriors, they protect the country. Those who have a good business sense, those are the Vaishyas. And then there are those who are the laborers, those are the Shudras. But I have divided society into these four categories because there cannot be, everyone in the country cannot be all warriors. All the people in the country cannot be teachers. Everyone cannot be a businessman or businesswoman, so I have divided society into these four castes. Anyhow, so the scriptures say that he has no sense organs, yet they say that he has countless sense organs. Also, we learn from the scriptures, Bhagavan says, I am absolutely independent. In fact, Naradji says to Bhagavan, my Lord, you are absolutely independent. Param swatantra na sir par koi, bhava hi man hi karahu tum soi. You do what you please. No one can control you. You're absolutely independent. And Bhagavan says, I am, but at the same time, aham bhakta paradhino hyaswatantra iva dvija sadhu bhirgrasta hridayo bhaktair bhakt janapriyah. This is a verse from the Bhagavatam, Canto 9, chapter 4, verse 63. Shri Krishna says, I am a slave of my devotees. I am a slave of my devotees. They have purchased me with their love. I am their Krita Das. I am their purchased slave. That is who I am. Because my devotees, they have purchased me. They tell me what to do and I do it. Bhagwan Shri Krishna is driving the chariot for Arjun. Arjun is giving instructions. Oh Shri Krishna, take my chariot to the right. Oh Shri Krishna, now slow down the chariot. Now stop the chariot. Now make it go faster. Go turn left. Now tend to my horses. Shri Krishna is tending to the horses. He's cleaning their wounds. He's feeding them. He is a servant of his devotee Arjun. And he's happily performing the seva. Ajito pijito ham tairavashopi vashikritah. Shri Krishna says, I am bound by the love of my devotees. They have tied me with the rope of their love. Bhakteshu sneh rajjubhihi. I am bound by the rope, rajju, of my devotees' love. Surdas was a great devotee of Shri Krishna and he was a blind man. One day he was walking, going somewhere, and he was chanting the glories of Shri Krishna, and he fell down into a deep ditch. But he was not concerned. He thought, the one who has put me here will himself take me out if he wants. Why should I worry? So he kept on chanting the names and the glories of Shri Krishna. Shri Krishna thought, this one is fully surrendered. I have to go help him. Shri Krishna appeared there, and he appeared in the form of a farmer. And he called out to Surdas, he said, Baba, I will extend my hand, my arm, and you grab hold of my hand and I'll pull you outside. Surdas said, well, that's good. My Lord has sent me someone. So as soon as Surdas ji held on to Shri Krishna's hand, he thought, this is the hand of my beloved Lord. This is the hand of my Lord, and I have wanted to have his divine touch. And after innumerable lifetimes, now I am attaining his touch. This is not the touch of a worldly man or woman, no. Shri Krishna pulled Surdas out of the ditch, and Surdas would not let go of that hand. Shri Krishna protested. He said, I am a farmer. I need to go to my fields. I need to take care of my crops. Please let go of me. Surdas said, let go of you? No. I have waited for this for countless lives, my Lord. I'm not letting go. Shri Krishna then smiled. And he used a tiny bit of his strength and he freed himself from the hold of Surdas. And now this old, blind, weak, blind old man is throwing a challenge to Shri Krishna. He says, Baah chudaye jaat ho, निबल जानी के मोही हृदय ते जब जाहुगे मर्द बदाऊंगो तो ही. You have freed yourself from my physical hold because I am so weak and you have infinite strength. But I challenge you, my Lord, that you can never free yourself from the prison of my heart. I have imprisoned you in my heart, and I dare you to escape from the prison. You cannot. And Sri Krishna just shed tears. So think about this. An ordinary man, Surdas, a blind man, old man, he is throwing a challenge to the Lord of countless universes. And Sri Krishna is happily accepting this because he is a slave of those who love him. शेष महेश दिनेश गणेश सुरेश हूँ जाही निरंतर ध्यावे जाहि अनादि अनंत अखंड अछेद अभेद सुवेद बतावे. नारद ते शुक व्यास रटे पचिहारे पुनीतौ पार न पावे ताहि अहीर की छोहरियाँ छछिया भर छाछ पे नाच नचावे. A saint has said that the Supreme Lord, who is meditated upon by the greatest personalities, Sheshnag, Lord Shankar, Surya Bhagwan, and his glories are being chanted by Narad Muni and Vedavyas. He is dancing to the tune of the gopis, to the beat of the gopis' clapping sounds. The gopi is clapping, she's giving beat, and she is telling Shamsundar to dance. And he's dancing. Why? Because she has promised him a little bit of buttermilk. Chachiya bhar chach pe naach nachavat. For a little bit of chach, buttermilk, he is dancing. The gopi has him under her control. She says, I have you in the palm of my hands. The gopi can make him dance to her tune because she has love. She has a power of love, and Shri Krishna is the slave of love. Whether you call him Krishna or Ram, same, one and the same. So Bhagwan is the slave of love. Although no one can tell him what to do, yet his devotees can make him do anything they want. Bhagwan Sri Ram, about him the Vedas say that he is so fear-inspiring that even personified fear is terrified of him. भयादस्याग्निस्तपति भयात्तपति सूरयः भयादिन्द्रश्च वायुश्च मृत्युर्धावति पंचमः. Kathopanishad. And yet the same Bhagwan Sri Ram, during the exile period, what is he saying to Lakshman? Oh Bhaiya, Lakshman Bhaiya, I am afraid. My Lord, you are afraid? Why? घन घमंड घन गरजत घोरा प्रियाहीन डरपत मन मोरा. There are dark clouds rumbling in the sky. The sky is overcast and the clouds are making a frightening sound. Oh Lakshman, if my Sita, my beloved Sita was with me, if she were with me, I would not be afraid. But she is not with me, so I'm feeling very, very afraid. This is the Lord who makes Yamraj afraid. Yamraj, the god of death, who terrifies everyone. He's terrified of Bhagwan Sri Ram. Bhagwan Sri Ram is saying, I'm afraid because there are dark clouds in the sky and they're making these scary sounds. Now, even a worldly man does not say or does not feel that he needs to be protected, physically protected by his wife. And this is the Supreme Lord. So there are so many contradictions. And if you think that maybe Shri Krishna is more valiant, you would be wrong. When he found out that when Jarasandh was chasing him, Shri Krishna took to his heels and he kept on running, and he didn't even look back. He just kept on running until he reached Dwarika, the safety of Dwarika. And this is the same Lord who terrifies Yamraj. So there are so many mutual contradictions about him. He does not need anything or anyone to make him happy because he's Atmaram. Purnakam, Purnanishkam. He doesn't need anything or anyone. But he runs after the gopis. He chases them and he begs them for butter, he begs them for this, for that. He is very attached to them, and although he does not need anyone. They're both sides that we see. The scriptures tell us both sides of him, that he's this, but he's also that. And our mind cannot understand all this. And this is why there's a lot of confusion in many minds, in many people's minds throughout the world. They say, oh, well, why did Bhagwan Shri Ram, why did Bhagwan hide behind the tree to kill Bali? Why did he do that? That's not right. Why did Bhagwan Ram renounce Mother Sita? That was not right. It shouldn't have been done. After a satsang, a gentleman said to me, Didi ji, I'm very angry at Ram. And I asked, who is this Ram? Maybe a neighbor, a friend, your brother? No, I mean Bhagwan Shri Ram. Wow, you're great. You're angry with Bhagwan Shri Ram? Why? And why did he renounce Sita? He shouldn't have done it. And I said, do you think you know more than Bhagwan Shri Ram? That you're saying he shouldn't have done something? Think about it. If we say he shouldn't have done this, that means I know better than him. That I should have been there as an advisor in Treta Yuga. And I would have told them, don't do that, that's wrong. And don't hide behind a tree, that's not scrupulous. We think we know more than him. We think that our intellect is greater than him. We who have not yet understood ourselves, we have not understood the self. We think ourselves to be this physical body. We who have not understood our mind, we who cannot control our mind, yet we think that we can understand his divine pastimes. There are many people like that who ask a lot of questions, not questions that they want answered. They have doubts about God. And sanshayatma vinashyati. Bhagavad Gita says, if you have doubts, you will suffer from a downfall, spiritual downfall. You cannot reach far in spirituality. You will fall down. The doubts are there because we think that we know more than him. Our intellect can understand him. When we don't understand what he does, we think that he is at fault. Rather than thinking, my intellect is limited, so it is my fault that I can't understand him. Rather than thinking this way, we think he is wrong because he did this wrong. I can understand him, but he is wrong. So, when God descends to earth, most people, we've all become very confused countless times. Every time he came, we became confused when we saw him. And the scriptures are giving us reasons. But we'll continue and conclude after chanting for a few minutes. Govinda, 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 Radhe, Radhe, Govinda. Govinda, 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 Radhe, Govinda. Govinda, 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 Radhe, Radhe, Govinda. Govinda, 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 Radhe, Radhe, Govinda. राधे राधे गोविंदा,
राधे राधे गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
राधे राधे गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
राधे राधे गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा, राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा, राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा, राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा, राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा, गोविंदा गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
गोविंदा गोविंदा गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
गोविंदा गोविंदा गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
गोविंदा गोविंदा गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
राधे राधे 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 गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
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 राधे गोविंदा, गोविंदा गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
गोविंदा गोविंदा गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
गोविंदा गोविंदा गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
गोविंदा गोविंदा गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
भज राधे राधे
गोविंदा,
भज राधे राधे
गोविंदा,
भज राधे राधे
गोविंदा,
भज राधे राधे
गोविंदा,
भज राधे राधे
गोविंदा,
भज राधे राधे
गोविंदा,
राधे राधे गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
राधे राधे गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
राधे राधे गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
राधे राधे गोविंदा, राधे राधे गोविंदा,
राधे गोविंदा, राधे गोविंदा, Radhe Govinda,
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 Radhe Govinda, 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 Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Govinda, Govinda, Govinda, Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Govinda, Govinda, Govinda, Govinda, Govinda, Govinda, Govinda, Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Govinda, Govinda, Govinda, Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Bhaj Radhe Radhe,
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 Govinda,
Radhe Radhe Govinda, Radhe Radhe 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 Govinda,
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 Radhe Govinda, 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 Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Govinda, Govinda, Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Govinda, Govinda, Govinda, Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Govinda, Govinda, Govinda, Radhe Radhe Govinda,
O Radhe Radhe,
Govinda,
Bhaj 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 Radhe Radhe,
Govinda,
Radhe Radhe Govinda, Radhe Radhe 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 Govinda,
Govinda, Govinda, 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 Govinda, Radhe Radhe Govinda.
बोलिए लाडली लाल की जय। So we see that the Vedas and Vedic scriptures put forth many sound and logical arguments and give us very good reasons to prove that God cannot be known. At the same time, we know that countless souls have already reached God. They have attained the divine abode of Bhagwan Shri Ram, Saket Lok. So how did they attain that abode? How did they know? How did they get to know Bhagwan Shri Ram? How did they reach him? While we cannot know Bhagwan Shri Ram using our senses, mind and intellect, and by doing something, by using our sadhana, no matter what we do, we cannot know him. While that is true, yet we can know him. We can also know him. But how? Through his grace. Kripa. Through his grace, we can easily know him. Without his grace, and if we rely on our own efforts, we can never know him. There's a very important scripture on the topic of devotion by Rup Goswami, one of the disciples of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And he has said in his scripture, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, he says, Sadhanau Ghaira Nasangaira Labhya Suchiradapi. That there is no sadhan, there are no means through which you can know God. Oh, I will do bhajan and kirtan. Go ahead and do that, but you cannot know God. I will do puja. You cannot know God. I will subject my body to great hardships. I'll do tapascharya. You cannot know God by doing penance. But if he graces you, yes, you will attain him. So now, what am I to do? Should I wait for Bhagwan Ram's grace? Should I wait for it? Should I just, whenever he decides, he'll grace me and I'll know him? And until then, just relax, take it easy. Nothing is possible without his grace. So how does this work? How this works is that you do sadhana. We are told to do sadhana. Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu pyare. Our Gurudev has told us again and again, Jagat Guru Shri Kripalu ji Maharaj has told the entire world, do sadhana, practice devotion. All right, so practice devotion. I'm practicing devotion. Next, what will happen? When you practice devotion, then you come to a point which is called bhav bhakti. Because anytime we do something again and again, we put our mind to it, we spend time on it, we become good at it, right? Whether it's riding a bicycle or driving a car or swimming or dancing, whatever it may be, we become good at it if we spend time working on it. So when we do sadhana, we become good at it. And we get to a point which is called bhav bhakti. At this point, the mind behaves itself. The mind wants to think about Bhagwan Shri Ram. We don't have to coax it. We don't have to cajole it. We don't have to threaten it. We don't have to get angry at it. It just wants to think about Bhagwan Shri Ram. And then with further practice of devotion, what happens is that the heart is becoming more and more purified. The heart is becoming purer and purer. The more we bring God into our heart, the purer the heart becomes. And then what happens is that God, through the divine Guru, gives his grace, and the Guru, the divine Guru, because God gives that duty to the Guru, he doesn't do it himself. So binu santana kahu pai, the Ramayana says, without a saint you cannot attain this. So through the Guru, the divine Guru, God gives us his ultimate grace. Then the Guru pours divinity into the heart which has now become purified. He pours that divinity, and then the heart becomes divine, the mind becomes divine, the intellect becomes divine, thoughts become divine, everything becomes divine. Did we get to this point by doing sadhana? No. What we did by doing sadhana is that we purified our heart. So doing sadhana, the practice of devotion, purifies the heart so that we may be given the gift of divine love. Guru gives the gift of divine love. He cannot give it until we purify our heart. So just by doing sadhana, we attained Bhagwan Shri Ram? No. But by doing sadhana, we purified our heart, and that heart became eligible to receive divine love. This is why it is said by Rup Goswami that sadhanau ghairana sangair alabhya suchiradapi. That there is no sadhana through which you can know Bhagwan Shri Ram. You can know him only through grace. The Ramayana tells us at many different places. Soi janahi jehi dehu janai janat tumahi hue jai. The only one who can know you, my Lord, is the one that you grace. If you want him to know you, he will know you because you've given him your kripa. Otherwise, he cannot know. If God graces even an animal, then that animal will become, he will be able to speak, he'll be able to utter the Vedic verses. It all depends on God's grace. If someone says, if you say, well, I think there's another path that I could take, I don't need to rely on God's grace, what if I go for the guru? What if I search for a guru and through the guru I can attain God? That is true. Without the guru we cannot attain God. But think about how your guru came into your life. You say you have a divine guru. You say Jagat Guru Shri Kripalu ji Maharaj is your guru. But how did he come into your life? It is with the grace of God. Did you go out searching for him? No. Did you do a lot of penance? Did you meditate day in and day out for years and years? How did he come into your life? He came because of God's grace. Ab mohi bha bharos hanumanta binu hari kripa milahi nahi santa. Vibhishan is saying to Hanumanji, now I know, O Hanumanji, that Bhagwan Ram has sent you, that Guru cannot be attained without the grace of the Guru, without the grace of God. So to Vibhishan, Hanumanji is the Guru sent by God. With the grace of Bhagwan Shri Ram, Hanumanji has come to Vibhishan. Binu Hari Kripa milahi nahi santa. A saint, a Guru cannot be attained without the grace of God. So even if you want to take the route of the Guru, you have to rely on God's grace. If you say, well, I'll read the scriptures and the scriptures will give me knowledge and I will get to know God, I will know Ram because of the scriptures. Well, no, we cannot read the scriptures and understand them. Unless our intellect is divine, we cannot understand the scriptures. Not even Ramayana. It's written in a very familiar language. Not even the Ramayana. We can read the Ramayana and we should read it from the divine story point of view. It is a story, the divine katha of Bhagwan Shri Ram. We should read it from that point of view. But as far as the knowledge of the Ramayana is concerned, the knowledge of the Ramayana is as lofty, as great as the knowledge of the Vedas. It cannot be understood. There are many confusing statements in the Ramayana. Confusing, I say, because we find it confusing. We cannot understand. At one point, Tulsidas ji says that the Jnani, the one who walks on the path of Gyan, is the dearest to God. Jnani Prabhu hi Vishesh Pyara. He is especially dear to God. At another point, he says, oh, Jnani Bhagati hi nahi kachu bheda. There's no difference between the one who walks on the path of Gyan and the one who walks on the path of Bhakti. At another point, he says, oh no, Bhagati hi na mohi priya so nahi. That God only loves those who devote themselves to him. He doesn't care about the Jnani. At another point, he says, the Jnani, the one who walks on the path of Gyan or knowledge, is a great fool. He is a fool of great proportions. He is such a fool that he wants to, it is as if he wants to cross an ocean without the help of a barge. Then finally, Tulsidas ji says, Ramchandra ke bhajan bina, je chah pad nirvan, bhakti jnanavant apiso nar pashu binu pooch vikhan. Even if he is equipped with great amounts of knowledge, yet if he does not practice devotion, that he is like an animal who does not have horns or tail. He's a hideous looking animal. That is how God views him. So, Jnani Prabhu hi Vishesh Pyara, to saying that Jnani is like an animal that's missing horns and tail. How will we make sense of these confusing statements? We cannot. It's only the one who has the divine intellect. God has given him the divine intellect. That would be the Guru, the saint, Sant, Mahatma, Mahapurush. Only he can make sense of the scriptures, and he explains them very easily. Those of you, and many of you sitting here, have heard Shri Maharaj's lectures, and you know, if you have heard them, if you haven't, I urge you to listen to them. You know what happens when you listen to his lectures. What you experience is that you start understanding the very confusing knowledge of the scriptures very easily. And then you start thinking, why didn't I understand this earlier? It's so easy. It's not easy. He made it easy. We cannot pick up the scriptures, read them, and understand them. A man and his wife, husband and wife, they both read the Ramayana. And after reading the Ramayana, the husband says to the wife, you know, I have read the Ramayana and I have derived at the conclusion of the Ramayana is that you, my wife, you should be like Sita. She says, well, I have read the Ramayana too, and what I have understood is that you, dear husband, you should be like Ram. So each one is thinking that the other one should be like Ram or Sita. But they're not thinking, well, I should follow the teachings of the Ramayana. We take what we want from the scriptures. Once I was giving a lecture, and in the lecture I made the mistake of mentioning World War II. I know nothing about World War II. I just said one sentence, and there was a gentleman afterwards in the Q&A session. He wanted to ask me questions about the World War II. And I said, I didn't talk about World War II. He said, you gave a very nice lecture about World War II. I said one line about World War II. So what he understood from the whole lecture was World War II. That's all he understood, whereas I had said nothing about it. So we take from the scriptures, we take from lectures what is convenient for us. We can't understand them. So even to understand the scriptures, we need the grace of God. God will send a saint and then a guru, and the guru will explain the scriptures. We will then understand what the scriptures are saying so that we may do sadhana and then one day attain divine love through God's grace. There are many people who think that Bhagwan Ram, and they want to know Bhagwan Ram. They want to know God. There were two gentlemen who once came to Shri Maharaj ji, Jagadguru Shri Kripalu ji Maharaj, and they said, Maharaj ji, we read in a magazine, it's a very well-known magazine in India, spiritual magazine, Kalyan. We read in the Kalyan magazine that the editors had written that if you read the Ramayana 108 times, you will see Ram. You will have his darshan. So Maharaj ji, we, both of us, there were two friends, we read the Ramayana 108 times, but we don't see Ram. Why? Shri Maharaj ji said, did I tell you this? Did I promise you this? No, you never said that. Then ask this question to those who told you to do this. So they wrote to the editors and they said, you told us to do this and we would see Ram, but we don't have his darshan, so please explain. And the editors wrote back, well, at least you read the Ramayana 108 times. And then these two gentlemen, they wrote back, well, now we have no more faith. We want to believe that by reading the Ramayana X number of times, we will have darshan of Bhagwan Shri Ram, but we won't. Bhagwan Shri Ram responds only to love. It's only by loving him that we can attain him. Only by loving him. Only by practicing devotion to him. It's only then that the heart will be made pure, and then the divine Guru will give. He will pour divinity, the divine love into our heart. There is no other way. It's only through grace. Ram kripa binu sunu khagarai, jani na jai Ram prabhutai. Ram kripa nasahi sab roga, jo yehi bhanti bane sanyoga. At many places in the Ramcharitmanas, Tulsidas ji, or I should say Bhagwan Ram through Tulsidas ji, is saying that everything depends on his grace. We make the effort, we cleanse our heart, and he pours the divine love into it. And that is how we will know Bhagwan Shri Ram, and this is how we will attain Bhagwan Shri Ram. What next? Let's find out tomorrow. बोलिए श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय. I think a lot of people are not speaking at all, so can we just have everybody's participation? बोलिए सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय. जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे.